So you know how a cat, first time you clap, it jumps? And you know, there's a reflex that eventually it doesn't move at all. How many times are we going to jump when another Democratic billionaire says
The Washington Post had a story today. If it's a day that ends in Y, it's a Democrat calling for higher taxes.
And they printed in the New York Times. Is there anyone reading the New York Times that doesn't agree with this in the first place? Who's he trying to
Yes, there are. But let's tell people what we're talking about. We're talking about Eli Broad. He is, of course, the billionaire founder of KB Homes and SunAmerica. He says it's time for rich people like him to pay more taxes. In an op-ed in the New York Times, Broad said the system of opportunity that made America great and helped create his $7 billion fortune is no longer working for most Americans. And he said it's time for a wealth tax. Quote, "Don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating an end to the capitalist system that's yielded some of the greatest gains in prosperity and innovation in human history. I simply believe it's time for those of us with great wealth to commit to reducing income inequality, starting with a demand to be taxed at a higher rate than everyone else." Now, Broad didn't give any specifics or endorse any specific candidate or plan, but he invited other one-percenters to join the Tax Us More movement during the Democratic debates this week. 18 other millionaires and billionaires published an open letter this week saying the wealth tax is, quote, patriotic and strengthens American freedom and democracy. The signers included Liesl Pritzker, George Soros, Chris Hughes, and Molly Munger. And it's not just wealthy liberals who are calling for higher taxes. Stan Druckenmiller, the conservative hedge fund billionaire, saying on this show that he sides with Joe Biden on calls to increase the tax on capital gains, which, of course, mainly flow to the wealthy.
I'm going to shock you. I kind of agree with Biden. I don't really think capital gains promote investment as much as advertised out there.
You can go back to Broad and say, well, this is a guy that gives so much to charity. His actual tax bill every year is probably low. He's given away more than $2 billion. But he's also stirred up the liberal base in California by reinventing education through private charter schools, which is not popular among Democrats. So he's kind of, I would say he's more of a moderate Democrat politically than a lot of these folks that have come out constantly in support of higher taxes on the wealthy.
I thought the most interesting line, by the way, in the whole piece was that he said that he didn't think that philanthropy alone, because this goes to the tax break issue on philanthropy, would ever get you there.
Well, it's an interesting journey that Bill Gates took as well and came to the same conclusion. They started out with vast fortunes saying, I'm going to fix this, whether it's education or healthcare, with my money. You quickly realize, like Gates did, that whatever you do is tiny compared to what the government needs to and should do to fix that problem. And they all end up making that same discovery.
But they do say that philanthropy can do things that government can't. You can do sort of incubation projects. You can see what works.
Right. But when you're trying to fix this,
and then try and bring
when you're trying to fix the structure of opportunity in America, which is ultimately what they all want to do, you realize quickly government has
to look at Newark.
The line that struck me was, he said, I've come to realize that no amount of philanthropic commitment will compensate for the deep inequities preventing most Americans, the factory workers and farmers, entrepreneurs and electricians, teachers, nurses, and small business owners, from the basic prosperity we call the American dream.
What got me was when he said the excuse that we want government to be as efficient as private entities and that we can't let the government spend the money until that happens is a specious argument.
Because that's never
saying, look, I know 90 cents is going to fall by the wayside, but I still think we should let the government try to solve our problems.
Yeah,
and that was a ridiculous.
Well, there's that caveat that's also impossible, that he wants the government to be more transparent and efficient.
Government's never going to do it, so
that's
we can't worry about that. Let's throw some more money at it anyway. Now, I ask you what he pays in tax, right? And you said, well, probably not much because of his philanthropic endeavor. Does he have to take the write-off for the philanthropic?
No, everyone can voluntarily overpay their taxes.
So
every year. The IRS has a special.
But you said he's obeying the law, which is the excuse.
Which is what they all hear.
Which is what they all say. Okay.
Yeah, but you know, honestly, the answer to that question, the answer to that charge is that, you could pay more, but if you're not changing the system,
it doesn't do anything. It's not effective.
That's what they say, but
it's not effective.
If they feel that strongly, they could certainly write a check.
But that's like him saying that the philanthropy he recognizes doesn't work unless you can change the system.